Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and to this video. Today's video is going to be answering questions about IB, and we're going to include those questions and answers, some tips and tricks to help you be successful in the program, and then from my personal opinion, some pros and cons of choosing the IB program, because ultimately this video wants to serve the purpose of helping you decide, is IB the right program for me? What are some other options that I could take? And then just which option is the best fit? So for some people, they're going to be like, yes, I love this, IB sounds great, and other people might be like, no, this isn't for me, and that's totally okay. Just remember, the most important thing is that you're being academically challenged and that you are having a good, genuine high school experience. So definitely don't choose a program because other people are pushing you to. Do what's going to make you the most fulfilled and what you feel like is going to make you the most successful. So, okay, let's go ahead and get right into questions. So the first question is, why is it called IB? So IB stands for International Baccalaureate, and as the name international implies, you can find this program across a ton of different countries, and there's usually a couple schools that offer IB within the state. So I know for Nebraska, we have, I think, 2 high schools, one in Lincoln, one in Omaha, but there might be like an Elkhorn, I'm not sure, but at least one in Lincoln that we have. And then something that people don't advertise about IB that might be helpful if you're trying to learn about it. So something that I think is important to unpack with this question is that when you're talking about a program, a lot of times people are going to give you really positive feedback, but it's also important to acknowledge some of the negative feedback that we see, because we don't want to lie and we don't want to form a false impression, because there are things about this program that are really challenging, but there's also things about this program that are really rewarding. So here's where I'm going to insert the pros and cons and then also some tips and tricks, just because I think that that can be really answering to this section of the video. But if you want to skip past that, there's going to be other questions after this question. But going into the pros, I think IB is a really useful tool for developing your own sense of time management. You literally do not have an option. Some people will procrastinate and they'll tell you that is not the most effective way to study. That's not the most effective way to get your work done, and people still do it, but it is very challenging. And as you go through pre-IB, freshman and sophomore year, up to junior and senior year, I would say most people develop some set schedule for studying, getting homework assignments done nightly, some routine that is going to help you really delegate your time management and also like order of importance when you're doing certain tasks. I would say small class size. That's something that I've really enjoyed because I came from a really small middle school outside the LPS district. But I really like the small class size because it gives you more individual help with the teacher. They're more easily able to identify your one-on-one strengths and maybe what you struggle with. And then also just having that sense of community. If you're going to most of your classes and you see the same 25, 30 people over and over again throughout your day, you're going to build really strong connections with not only your teachers, but also with your peers. College credit. So obviously IB, you are taking college level classes your junior and your senior year. So you do have the opportunity at the end of your senior year to test and get your IB diploma for all of those classes, which will then translate into college credit. It is a pretty significant amount. It does depend on which HLs and SLs you choose to do, and there will be a separate video on that, kind of breaking down how those translate into college credit and what those classes are like. And I'm also going to try and interview some specific students that are from different HLs and SL classes so that you can hear from them as well. But I do know someone that took a very generic, very standard, I'd say like common IB path this year that just graduated and had 36-hour credits that went to college. And so they're now entering college with a sophomore standing, but they're actually freshmen. So that's really nice because IB is as alternative to something more common like AP. AP classes, you do have to pay to take those tests, but for IB everything is free, so you can essentially get a year of college done for free. So that's a really good opportunity. It also, not only just the credit, it prepares you for what college classes are going to be like. There are definitely IB students that will take a class and they will not get the IB credit for it. Now, I wouldn't say that's super common, but it can and it does happen. So it's important to recognize if you're really nervous, oh my gosh, I shouldn't do IB because what if instead of taking the test right after the class, I wait a year and a half or 2 years and then I forget the content? But even if that happens, you will learn so many skills that are going to help you in college, even if you have to retake that class or retake a similar class, because you're going to know how to study, you're going to know how to time manage, you're going to know how to advocate for yourself, you're going to have all of these really good soft skills, so transferable skills to other environments, whether it's a workforce or like higher level education, that is going to be beneficial regardless of if you actually get that credit. Okay, so prepared for college, how to study, and as the last pro, I added that you can still be involved in extracurricular. I won't lie, it's a challenge. It is difficult. You do have to be really good at time management because you want to make sure that you have a good balance between being involved in extracurricular activities and then being happy and having free time for yourself and doing well still in your studies. But I think most IB students are involved in probably more than just one activity, whether that's a school activity or an activity that you can find outside of school. And I think it's really enriching because you want to make sure that you're a well-rounded student and that you're doing something besides just academics, especially if you are doing IB because you wanted to get into a specific college. Colleges want to see well-rounded students. They don't want to see perfection. So that kind of leads into the cons and then how I'm going to refute those cons. So the first con is when people say, oh my gosh, well, I don't want to do IB because I've heard that there's a bad teacher or bad teachers. And what I'm going to say to that is, I'm not going to lie, there are classes and there are teachers that every year, no matter what kind of student and what kind of learner kids are, they struggle in that class. And I would say two things to that. The first is that sometimes a teacher just has a specific teaching style that doesn't match your learning style, and they're not actually a bad teacher. You just need to learn how to study for that specific class. And then other times, the teacher isn't necessarily doing everything that they could to support the students, and that is definitely a separate issue, but it definitely happens. And something that you can do is go in, ask for extra help, try and hold your teacher accountable. If you know you and your classmates are struggling with something, ask to do example problems in class, ask for worksheets and keys to be posted online for extra practice. There are so many things that you can do to advocate for yourself that where you can still be successful in those classes. And that's such a great skill, because if you're thinking that you don't want to do IB because you've heard, oh, this class is really hard or this class is really hard because of the teacher, you have to think that especially in college, there's going to be teachers like that, and not just in college, in other programs too. Like if you do AP classes or just on level regular classes, there's going to be bad teachers everywhere. So you are going to have to face this problem no matter what. So I would definitely not view that as a reason to turn away from doing the IB diploma program. And then also as an IB student, I think at least at Lincoln High, most of, if not all of the IB teachers that we have are amazing. They're so involved and they really do want you to succeed. So I would just say build your relationship with that teacher and really advocate for yourself. Okay, I did add free time as a con because I think that your schedule kind of ebbs and flows when you're busy and when you're not busy. You're always constantly busy, but like sometimes you're extra busy, and then that does make it really hard to have free time for activities and friends and family and things like that. But something that's important to remember is just finding a balance for yourself. And something that I've learned this year, like if I'm gonna go to bed and I'm not going to do a specific assignment, that sleep might be more beneficial for me, or that free time or whatever else I'm doing might be more beneficial for me than doing that assignment that I can catch up on later, because it's going to make sure that I'm reset and I'm ready to go for the next day instead of just getting more and more behind. So it's really important to work free time into your schedule so that you don't experience burnout. And then I put the workload. So obviously a lot of students complain about the workload, or they feel like, why are we doing this assignment? This is just a busy work assignment. This isn't important. And what I would say is be really conscious about the classes that you're picking. That's a mistake that I think I made this year, is I didn't have someone older than me giving me guidance on, yes, take this class, or ooh, that's a really hard class. So if you're going to take that, maybe pick an easier class in this subject or something like that. So I would say make sure that you have a balanced schedule. If you just go in and if you try and pick all of the easiest classes or all of the hardest classes, you might either be bored or you might be so burnt out that you don't have any free time and you're so stressed out all the time. So I would say make sure to find a balance in your schedule, talk to people that are older than you that have done the classes before, and then pick the subjects that you're the most interested in and the subjects that you want to excel at, and then other ones that you know you still have to take those classes, but maybe they're not your favorite, take a lighter load for that class if it's possible. Okay, and then just some overarching tips that don't even just apply to IB, but really any program. I already kind of touched on this, but really advocate for yourself. If you're building a relationship with your peers, if you're building a relationship with your teachers, it is so much harder to fail because you are putting forth maximum effort and they know that you care about your success and that you care about your studies and you care about your grades. So if you need help, ask for it. It is one of my pet peeves when I hear people complain about, oh my goodness, I'm doing so bad in this class, but they're not taking any steps to make sure that they're succeeding in that class. So of course you're going to struggle. So make sure that you're advocating for yourself. There are so many people that want to help you, so many resources that are available across so many schools, not just Lincoln High. If you advocate for yourself, not only in high school, but in college, you are already setting yourself up from the get-go to be more successful and to really grow in whatever environment you're placed in. Okay, I already talked a little bit about extracurriculars as well, but really getting involved in activities as early as you can is so beneficial because you then just get to put that on college resumes, but you're also building yourself as a person more. Sometimes if you wait until junior or senior year to get involved in activities, it looks like you're scrambling, but you can also find new passions and new interests the earlier that you get involved. Okay, and the last one, which I personally feel like is the most important, is don't compare yourself to others. And that's something I didn't really understand until this year because each person and each individual, whether it's actual IB classes or it's pre-IB classes, is going to hit a point where, oh my goodness, this is really hard. School is really hard. Free time is really hard to schedule in. Friends are really hard. Family relationships are really hard. Something is going to be really hard. And that is going to affect someone's academics, and it might be at any point. So for some students, it's freshman year, some people sophomore year. Me personally, it's been junior year. And comparing yourself, I know people say comparison is the thief of joy, and that's really true, but not even that. If you compare yourself, it's going to make you feel bad. I feel like comparing yourself also makes you perform worse because you're not worried on growing yourself and growing your own knowledge base. You're worried on how you're doing in relation to other people. So if everyone got an F on a test and you got a D, but you feel great because you did better than most people, well, that's actually not really that great anyways. So I think really just focusing on yourself. And if you have a bad test and it goes well for other people, don't freak out. Just figure out what can I do better next time and what are the areas that I need to make sure I study. So not comparing yourself, I'd say, is my number one tip for success, but we can get a little bit more into that later. I want to get back on track with other questions about IB. So the next question is, which IB courses are you taking? So I'm specifically taking, I have IB Spanish SL first period, and then second period, I have IB History HL. Everyone at my school takes IB History as an HL class, but even I think if it was offered HL versus SL, I think I would do HL. Third period, I have IB Psych. That's only offered as an SL class at Lincoln High. Fourth period, I have an elective, so I do weight training. Fifth period, I have IB Chem. That's my third HL. Sixth period, I have IB Math AA SL, and we might talk a little bit about the differences between some HLs, SLs, and different classes that you can take in a different video. And then that was my sixth period class. And then seventh period, I have IB English HL, and everyone also takes that as an HL. So I do take my second elective for the day as a 0 period. It's a graduation requirement, and that's take charge. But as far as my IB classes, it's a pretty packed schedule, and I don't know if I would recommend taking all of those classes at the same level. I don't know if I would do it again, but that could also just be me personally, and I think everyone needs to find a schedule that works for them. And there might definitely be some trial and error with that. You might not get it right first try. Okay. The next question is, do you enjoy what you do in IB classes? Why or why not? Specifically, do you enjoy them because of the teaching, the assignments, what you're learning, or the people? Like more in-depth response. I would say I really do enjoy the people in my IB classes. I think you get such a broad range of opinions. I think diversity is definitely something that I'm glad that I see in my IB class, but I know a lot of people want to see more ethnic representation, and I definitely think that we will make another video on that sometime in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned if you want to hear more about diversity. The assignments, I think that might be something I don't like, but not for every class. For some classes, I feel like teachers are really considerate of our time and the amount of workload that they can give us, where we're also going to match the same amount of effort. If you don't give us a heavy workload, people are just going to blow through it. And then if you give us way too much, people are going to underperform. But there's somewhere about finding the balance that I think some teachers are really good at and some teachers are still figuring out, and that's totally okay. And then overall, the teaching, we touched on this earlier, but overall the teachers, I love most, if not all of my IB teachers, especially this year. Okay. In IB, are you given opportunities in class to practice or apply what you're learning to real life situations or to apply the knowledge in solving new problems? So basically, are you learning what you're learning actually applicable to real life? And some classes, yes, it totally is. And other classes, no, but they're still important, and here's why. Because colleges really want to see, and for yourself, that you can apply your mind in other disciplines and other aspects that are really abstract. So even if you're doing like quantum physics and you're like, okay, I'm not going to use this in whatever career you're specifically going into, it's still important that you're challenging your own brain that way and that you're figuring out what your capacity is and challenging yourself in new ways to prove like, hey, I can still think like this. And that's a really big strength. So I wouldn't say that there's any IB classes that you take that are unnecessary. I think there are other types of classes, like some graduation requirements, that you might feel the curriculum is outdated and it seems unnecessary, but I would not say I feel that way about any of my actual IB classes. Let me see. Okay, contrast the instruction you receive in IB classes with other classes that you have taken. So I think in AP classes that I've taken, the testing styles are very regurgitation based. So you're asked, where was democracy developed? And then on the test you would circle Athens. In an IB course, I feel like that question would look more like democracy was developed in, you would have to know Athens, and then it would be like, this is still significant today because, and then you would say, well, because democracy is a really common form of government that we still see in most countries in the world today. So that's still applicable. So I would say IB is a lot more application and analysis based, and that's personally why I prefer IB over AP style classes. But they're not ranked as one is harder than the other. I would say they're just very different testing styles. IB seems to be a lot more broad questions, open-ended questions, and then you apply your knowledge to that. And then AP is a lot more of like, there is a specific right answer, tell me what it is. And I actually chose IB because I felt like I needed to grow in that broad and open-ended question more so than regurgitation. I felt like memorization was a strength for me, so I wanted to work on a weakness. So that might be another reason to choose IB. If you feel like you struggle, you can definitely get better before college. Okay, I have two more questions. The first one is, do you feel any social or academic pressure from peers that are not in IB classes compared to peers that are in IB classes? And I would say that I definitely have friends that aren't in IB classes, and nobody makes fun of you, seriously. And if they do, they're not actually your friend. And everyone just wants to see you grow. So no one is going to make fun of you for doing an IB class. Nobody is going to say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Like, come do a class that's not going to challenge you. So I would say I haven't experienced pressure to either do IB or to not do IB. And I think everyone needs to make that decision for themselves. And then also, is it hard to do IB and sports at the same time? And I think I chose this question because sports are a very specific type of extracurricular, not just like a club or volunteering. So I think that sports are probably the most demanding extracurricular just because of the time-wise, the schedule and the commitment, and also if you're doing a really physical sport. For example, I did track and diving, and those were a lot harder for me to maintain than doing golfing because part of it is that they are more physical sports and your body is tired and so is your mind. But I think that it's important for everyone to find a balance. And I would say that in IB, most people I know do one sport. There are very few, but there are people that do two. And I only know one person off of the top of my head that does two sports and they're back-to-back seasons. And I think that that's really telling because it's extremely difficult to do that. But if it's important to you, let your teachers know, let your coaches know, and they will help you make a plan to be successful in both your sport, your activities, and your academics. So it is definitely doable. Okay guys, that's it for this video. Make sure, as always, to either scan the QR codes or fill out the links in the description down below to submit new video ideas so that I can cover topics that you guys want to see. And then also go ahead and fill out the link and scan the QR code for our very next video. And I hope to see you guys again.